Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a college admissions scandal hitting campuses from coast to coast.
We're here today to announce charges in the largest college admissions scam ever prosecuted by the Department of Justice.
The Hollywood stars caught in the investigation and reaction from a San Diego campus.
Although rain is really nice for the overall desert area, on the playa, it brings these salts up, and as soon as they dry and we get a nice, good wind from the west, they will just blow.
California falling behind on a plan to control the dust at the Salton Sea. How local officials are trying to avoid a major health issue. And more Californians are signing up to vote. The trend that doesn't fall along party lines.
It's something that is currently happening to us and can happen in your own neighborhood. If we don't help preserve the essence of who we are, who this community is, we're not going to have anything left.
Before it closes its doors for good, community members mobilizing to save Skate World. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, March 12th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. It's a nationwide bribery scheme. Investigators say it helped parents cheat college admission standards. Federal officials have charged dozens of them, including actresses Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman. Huffman's husband, William H. Mercy, arrived at an LA courthouse today for her hearing. The Justice Department says they paid a consultant to come up with fake academic credentials to help their kids get into prestigious universities. KPBS editor Tom Fudge says the University of San Diego was one of the schools implicated.
The center of the alleged scam was a sham company posing as a charity that parents of prospective college students would contribute to. In fact, prosecutors say their contributions ended up paying bribes to coaches, college officials, and people proctoring college entrance exams. The charity, called the Key Worldwide Foundation, was founded by William Singer, the man said to be at the center of the scam. Court documents say he has agreed to plead guilty in the case. A major accusation is that parents and corrupt officials passed the students off as accomplished athletes that had been recruited by the school. 33 parents were indicted for fraudulently trying to get their children into select colleges. The colleges range from USC to Georgetown to the University of Texas to the University of San Diego. Andrew Lelling is a U.S. attorney for the District of Massachusetts.
The parents charged today, despite already being able to give their children every legitimate advantage in the college admissions game, instead chose to corrupt and illegally manipulate the system for their benefit.
The complaint says one defendant got his son admitted to the University of San Diego with the help of a coach who, it was said, was on board to help. The coach was not named in the complaint. USD released a statement saying, "We have no reason to believe that any members of our admissions team, our administration, our staff, or our current coaching staff were aware of or involved in the alleged wrongdoing." Tom Fudge, KPBS News.
Thanks, Tom. The VA has selected San Diego for a new program to upgrade patient care. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says it's part of a national effort to target some longstanding issues with VA care.
San Diego was one of 18 hospitals around the country selected for the pilot program to become a high reliability organization. VA San Diego Director Robert Smith says the new program will try to upgrade nearly every aspect of VA care.
A lot of this is about culture change. It's really working across the board with all of our staff and encouraging them to have that zero harm stance front and center.
Another sample.
The ideas are borrowed from industries like nuclear powered, where even one mistake can have disastrous consequences. For hospitals, it means designing systems that work even when someone makes a mistake.
The reality is that humans make mistakes. Humans make errors. And so what a high reliability organization focuses about is to prevent harm from occurring as a result of errors.
The VA is announcing the new program about the same time the General Accounting Office is again listing the National VA as a high-risk agency for fraud, waste, abuse, and mismanagement, citing problems like long wait times. The VA expects all 170 VA hospitals to move toward becoming a high-reliability organization beginning next year. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Thank you, Steve. The San Diego City Council has decided to extend the contract for a homeless storage center. The 20th Street Storage Center opened in June. Today's approval allows it to stay open through June of next year. The extension is estimated to cost $1.3 million. Skate World San Diego is an indoor roller rink in Linda Vista. It's at risk of closing its doors after 4 decades. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar talks to neighbors who want to save it.
Sharon Larios has lived in Linda Vista all her life. Coming to Skate World San Diego was part of her childhood.
It's a huge part of my identity and who I am. So I got involved because of the fact that it's Skate World and just what Skate World represents to our community.
Recently, Larios and other skating enthusiasts found out that their neighborhood roller rink was in jeopardy of closing its doors. The city of San Diego owns the property that Skate World is on and is now required by state law to dispose of former redevelopment property assets like the Skate World property.
This property was a city asset, part of the old redevelopment agency. Governor Brown a while ago said that all those properties that are in the redevelopment agencies need to be liquidated and sold off to the highest available value to the taxing entities that are involved.
The city opened up a bidding process last year. Skate World and other companies bid on the land, but ultimately the bid went to a different company. City Council is set to vote on the sale in mid-April. But for now, Larios is doing everything she can to try to save the rink. She started an online petition that now has more than 15,000 signatures.
It's something that is currently happening to us and could happen in your own neighborhood. If we don't help preserve the essence of who we are, who this community is, we're not going to have anything left.
Skate World's management says they're looking into the idea of moving to a different location, but they can't imagine not being in Linda Vista.
It's really hard to do a rink, though, because to have that much unobstructed space, plus it's just a landmark.
Larios and others are planning rallies in the coming weeks to help spread awareness in the neighborhood and get residents to petition City Council to stop the sale. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
For more information on the efforts to save Skate World, you can visit our website at kpbs.org. A record number of Californians are now registered to vote. The state's registration rate is the highest in nearly 25 years. Capitol Public Radio's Ben Adler reports on the new data released by the Secretary of State's office.
New report shows California had nearly 20 million registered voters on the rolls as of a month ago, and the state's 79% registration rate is the highest since just before the 1996 presidential election, when it topped 80%. Comparing this report with the previous one last fall, two trends from recent years continue to show up. A sharp increase in voters identifying as no party preference, up above 28%, and a drop in Republican registration, down to about 23.5%. The Democratic Party's registration rate is also dropping, down to a shade above 43%, but it's still adding voters, while the GOP is losing them. At the state capitol, I'm Ben Adler.
You can see a breakdown of voter data and trends at capradio.org. Suicide prevention advocates from across the state will meet in Sacramento tomorrow. They want lawmakers to make mental health a priority. The San Diego chapter of American Foundation for Suicide Prevention will be there. The chapter's president said he became an advocate after the death of his nephew.
My nephew died of suicide in 2009. It was devastating. You know, Austin was a great kid. We knew he had some struggles with drugs and alcohol. But at 21 years old, you know, I didn't know that he was struggling to the extent that he was, and he had, you know, thoughts of suicide. So I didn't know that, and the family was devastated. But I think it's an opportunity after he passed away to learn about mental health.
Advocates have a proposal to require a strategic plan to prevent youth suicides for all California counties. San Diego already has its own plan. If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK for support and resources. California's largest lake continues to recede as state efforts to manage the retreat remain largely unfunded. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has more on the challenges for local officials who are trying to protect the exposed lake bottom.
The new normal on the southeastern portion of the Salton Sea is a stark departure from the past.
15 years ago, there was water right where we're standing. And it's just receded that much.
Bruce Wilcox is the California Resources Secretary for the Salton Sea. He's standing on a spur of land that was once part of a boat launching area.
And will continue to recede. It's very flat, and so for every vertical foot of drop, there is several thousand feet of horizontal exposure.
The sandy playa that used to be underwater will be exposed to the sun and wind, and that concerns local officials. Wilcox says the dust is tiny and can easily get airborne. That's a public health crisis for a region already suffering with California's highest asthma rates.
One particulate matter 10 or 10 microns, very, very small dust. But inhaled, it's a health hazard all by itself. But also probably adhering to some of those particulate matter particles here are toxic material of one kind or another.
California's 10-year management plan involves flooding more than 20,000 newly exposed acres of lakebed to control dust and to create wildlife habitat. But the state only has about half the money needed for that effort, and the first flooding project is running 2 years behind schedule.
And this is salt here, right?
Yes, this is efflorescent salt. It's mostly sodium, I think it's chloride, that just kind of comes up after a rain event.
Jessica Humes works for the Imperial Irrigation District. She's brought us to an area that is just south of the Alamo River, east of the lake.
Although rain is really nice for the overall desert area on the playa, it brings these salts up, and as soon as they dry and we get a nice good wind from the west, they will just blow. And it is almost whiteout conditions just from dust.
So the district has come up with a plan to keep some of that dust out of the air.
This area just to the east of the Salton Sea is what's being worked on. They're digging deep furrows that are designed to catch the dust that would otherwise blow across.
Humes says engineers work the soils to roughen it up. The idea is to create some resistance for the wind on what would otherwise be a dry, flat lake bed.
The logic here is that if you create this furrow, the winds come mostly from the west to this area, so they'll bring any salt, dust, particles in through the array, and with each little hump they have to go over, they drop out some of the dust particles.
The project is carefully monitored, and Humes says their analysis shows these trenches can cut a 25-mile-an-hour wind in half at the surface. And she says it's an effort to be proactive as conditions around the Salton Sea change.
This is not nearly as dusty as the area to the south, which has no projects on it.
Humes concedes this project won't work everywhere. It needs the right kind of soil, it only helps when the winds come from a specific direction, and it may not work when there are really strong winds. But the Imperial Irrigation District monitoring proves the project can be part of the solution. But more needs to be done.
There's 3 times the state's childhood asthma rate in this area. It's serious.
IID's Robert Shetler says habitat ponds that cover the exposed playa need to be built soon, but that takes money, and the state has only set aside less than half the money for a 10-year plan aimed at controlling the dust with flooding. Even so, Shetler remains optimistic.
The Salton Sea can be sustainable, yet it needs to be a smaller sea. So we would like to work with our partners on that. And how that comes about, that remains to be seen.
The Imperial County District is trying to leverage its position as a senior rights holder of Colorado River water to get federal matching funds for the management effort at the Salton Sea. That could double the $200 million the state has available for the project, and it could get some of those more effective dust control measures built. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Coming up on Evening Edition Thursday, we look at an overdue plan to flood exposed playa in an area called Red Hill Bay. San Diego is still dealing with cooler temperatures tonight, but we'll see a warm up soon. Erin Calandra has details in tonight's forecast.
We're taking a look at Mount Laguna, brought to you by the Laguna Mountain Lodge. This is what it looked like earlier today. Beautiful, a winter wonderland. You can see a couple of inches of snow dropped overnight and yesterday. Now today they are expected to see another inch or two in some locations. Let's take a look at the satellite because it's still pretty active. We're still seeing some of that rain, some of that snow dropping across Southern California with that low pressure system. It's now driving off to the east, but we're still seeing just some lingering showers that will be tapering off throughout the day. So for tonight, in the metro area, our temperature will reach 54 degrees. We will see maybe a cloud or two around. Across the region, it's looking good. Borrego Springs at 51 and clear. Mount Laguna could still see a shower, a little bit of snow at 35 degrees. Now tomorrow, expected to get maybe a little bit chillier. We could see some windier conditions too. On the back half of that low, it's driving down that chilly air. We're protected here along the coast with that influence from the ocean, but it's those interior areas where you're going to notice a couple degree change. So in San Diego County, we'll see our temperatures tomorrow in Oceanside at 64 and sunny, San Diego at 65, Ramona at 63, Borrego Springs in the low 70s, and Mount Laguna at 48 degrees. Late week, it's looking beautiful. It's going to get warm and sunny. Along the coast the next couple days, it's going to remain nice and sunny. Temperatures slowly increasing to those mid-70s for the weekend. Inland, we'll be in the 70s much of the week, and then by Sunday, we jump up to 80 degrees. Beautiful sunshine in the deserts. We're in the 70s until Sunday. That's when we reach 81 degrees. And in the mountains, of course, it's a bit chilly. Expect to see sunshine, but not as warm. We're only in the 40s. By the weekend, we do jump up to the 50s. So if you want to check out some of that snow, well, you better hurry up. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
They're cross-border stories told through film. The San Diego Union Tribune and the Latino Film Festival's competition has been narrowed down from nearly 300 entries to the top 15. Today, I spoke to Kayla Mulholland, a finalist, about how being a social worker led to a migration story from a child's perspective.
The beginning of the film is in the Benito Juarez shelter. It was a few days after it had rained, and so the tents were soaked. The children's clothing was still really dirty, but the kids were just playing around in the camp. And the beginning of the film focuses on them playing around, like eating ice cream and playing hopscotch, and it really has this sort of juvenile innocence to it, but it's contrasted with their stories, which are stories of extreme hardship, not only from their hometowns, but on the journey in order to get to Tijuana.
¿Tú dónde vives? En Guatemala. Guatemala. Sí. Porque allá los mareros quieren que uno se integre a las maras o si no lo matan. No quiero que me agarren los policías o que me agarren esos ladrones por trabajar por ellos. No quiero eso.
The second half is actually the day that the border shut down. It almost felt like a war zone at the time.
This is a federal restricted area.
So Kayla, why did you decide to tackle this story from the perspective of these three children?
So the reason that I chose this story in particular is because I've been working as a clinical social worker in a shelter that's called Instituto Madre Asunta in Tijuana, and it's a shelter for women and children who mostly they're seeking asylum. It's also a shelter for people who've been deported from the U.S. But what we see in our intake assessments and in the therapy sessions is just the extreme amount of trauma that these families have faced, and a lot of them are presenting with symptoms of PTSD, depression, you know, very complex trauma that is a result of the violence that they've experienced, not just at home with their partners because of the gangs trying to recruit their children, but also a state violence and the lack of a response to their suffering. And you know, a lot of times, I mean, one story in particular of a woman I'm working with, her husband was killed, and when she tried to go to the police, she was then targeted.
So how did your work as a social worker help you with the filmmaking?
I think it's so important as a filmmaker to really understand the population you're working with before shooting. So instead of just parachuting in and shooting a doc, I think what's really important to me as a visual anthropologist is knowing the population I'm working with beforehand and being able to get their insight. So what is it that you think is important? What's the story you would like to be told? And what would you like other people to know about your experience?
What do you hope people take away after watching your documentary?
I hope that people see the film and really create a sense of empathy for the characters. I hope that it helps people understand that these are not, you know, this isn't a population that people should be afraid of, but instead should be opening their arms and really accepting in, because they are asking for help. This is the legal way for them to be able to obtain that help, and they are going the legal route. Just the amount of hope and resiliency that this population has, they're not defined by their suffering and their struggle, but yet they're stronger because of it. And I think that the resiliency that they have shown is just, it's incredible.
And Kayla Mulholland, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Kayla is one of 15 finalists out of nearly 300 entries for the Migrant Film Festival, which is taking place March 19th.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, Britain's parliament deals a blow to the Prime Minister, rejecting the latest plan to leave the European Union. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
For some Native American tribes, lacrosse is the medicine game, which is played in a ceremony to heal the spirit. In this report from WMHT in New York, lacrosse has become an avenue of opportunity for Native American students.
We get a stick when we're born in our crib, so it's where it all starts.
I've been very fortunate that I've been at the University of Albany now for almost 19 years. I'm in my 19th season. And over the course of that 19 years, I've had 14 Native Americans come through and play for me.
I've been playing lacrosse since I was 3 years old. I was born with a lacrosse stick in my hand, so.
My name's Ron John. I'm a junior at UAlbany, and I'm a midfielder, number 33. I'm from Cattaraugus, the Cattaraugus Indian Reservation, the Seneca Nation. That's what I'm a part of. I'm Turtle Clan. So I guess lacrosse, like I said, it's a way of life. It's my life, and it's just huge. It's a huge part.
In the beginning, it was more so just like playing to play, because it was cultural. And then as I got older, I started respecting it, and helped my mind clear a little bit, and it's just a fun game to play. I think it's a medicine game, honestly. That's what we call it, the medicine game.
It's so much fun. I couldn't just not play. Well, it really was my family that, encouraged me to go off to school and just try to make a name for myself off the reservation. I'm from the Onondaga Nation. I have to remember where I came from, who brought me up, who got me to where I was, and really it's just the lacrosse aspect brought me so much further.
Lacrosse is a game, so enriched in their culture. So this is the one opportunity for them to be able to use the game, to better themselves, to get an education.
I'm a mathematics major. I kind of want to be a teacher just so I can coach.
I would like to go back to the nation and really help the kids. There's a lot of kids out there that do need help on my reservation. We have a really bad drug and alcohol problem. Kids start very young, and really we haven't found a way to reverse it, and I'm hoping I can go back and hopefully change that and get people to go to college and get an education, do better for themselves.
I want lacrosse to be a part of my life for as long as I possibly can, whether that be coaching, whether that be even just, helping students realize there are things that can get you to further places. And for me, lacrosse is one of them.
My big dream is to start my own program for like Native youth and to really just help kids in my predicament be able to aspire to do what I did.
Lacrosse was always there, and it never turned its back on me, so I never turned my back on it.
You can see more stories of these players in an online series called The Medicine Game on WGMHT.org. Now for a recap of tonight's top stories. The U.S. District Attorney's Office indicted 33 parents as part of a college admission corruption case. Investigators say the parents gave money to the sham charity Key World Foundation to bribe school officials and coaches in order to get their children into elite schools. A new report shows a record number of Californians are now registered to vote, and the state's registration rate is the highest in nearly 25 years. And community activists in Lena Vista are rallying to save their neighborhood roller rink, Skate World. The rink is set to close after losing a bidding process for the land. Neighbors plan on submitting a petition to save the rink to the city council. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.